The McCrory family walked into Judge Lake's courtroom carrying heavy doubts and an even heavier history. Just weeks earlier, Keith and Rose McCrory had been devastated by the shocking revelation that Keith was not the biological father of their daughter, Nivea. The truth had shaken their marriage, and now another cloud loomed over them. The paternity of their 3-year-old son, Keith Jr. Keith, still reeling from betrayal, confessed that he loved his son deeply, but could no longer ignore the nagging doubts. The pain of discovering the truth about Nivea had opened his eyes. He now questioned whether his son truly carried his bloodline, the very bond he had cherished when giving him his name. Rose, however, stood firmly by her claim. She was 1,000% certain Keith Jr. was her husband's child. Judge Lake pressed for details, and the story unfolded. Around the time of Keith Jr.'s conception, the couple had broken up for a few days. In that brief separation, Rose admitted she had slept with another man without protection. She never told Keith, insisting it wasn't cheating because they weren't together at the time. But as the judge reminded her, the issue wasn't about cheating. It was about paternity. The revelation cut Keith deeply. The man Rose had been with was not a stranger, but a mutual friend who had spent nights drinking at their house. To Keith, the betrayal was doubled. He admitted that if the DNA test proved Keith Jr. was not his, he could not stay in a marriage. The audience gasped as photos, accusations, and arguments about Facebook posts and late-night calls spilled into the courtroom. Rose tried to defend herself, saying she was sure of her son's paternity and accusing Keith of overreacting. Yet her confidence wavered under a lie detector test. When asked if she had been with anyone beyond the one man she admitted, she confessed she had. When asked about sending intimate photos to others, she admitted again. And when asked if she had slept with the other possible father more times than she claimed, the examiner found her deceptive. Keith sat devastated, tears forming his eyes. His trust was already fractured, and now it shattered further. Rose insisted she was telling the truth where it mattered, that Keith Jr. was his child. But the courtroom grew tense as doubt mounted. For Keith, this was about more than marriage. It was about the bond between father and son, the dream of passing on his name, teaching his boy to play baseball, and raising him without fear of betrayal. At last, Judge Lake called for the envelope. Silence fell as the results were read. In the matter of McCrory v. McCrory, concerning 3-year-old Keith McCrory Jr., it was determined that Keith McCrory was indeed the biological father. Relief swept across the room. Rose cried out triumphantly, "See? I told you so." Keith exhaled deeply, emotions flooding his face. Judge Lake reminded them that marriage meant surviving not only the best of times, but also the worst, and she called them into chambers to counsel them privately. But the day's docket was not finished. Another case unfolded, Chapman versus Hayes. Keisha Chapman stood before the court, determined to prove that her 2-year-old son, Maurice Jr., belonged to the man beside her, Maurice Hayes. The two already shared an older child, but Hayes had grown distant and dismissive of the younger boy. Keisha accused him of taking care of another woman's child while neglecting his own. She recounted holidays when Hayes showered their daughter with gifts but brought nothing for Maurice Jr. Hayes defended himself with claims of doubt. He recalled that when Keisha first became pregnant, she denied it, even as letters arrived confirming it. He said she was talking to other men at the time, and he questioned whether the baby could truly be his. More bizarrely, he cited the absence of sympathy symptoms he had experienced during her first pregnancy. The audience laughed when he explained that he hadn't gained weight or developed cravings this time, so he believed the child wasn't his. Keisha, frustrated, presented evidence. She showed pamphlets warning men not to sign birth certificates if they had doubts. Hayes admitted he saw it, but signed anyway, claiming he was just trying to be a good guy. She showed Facebook posts where Hayes appeared to acknowledge the child, though he insisted they were about another son who had tragically passed away. Back and forth they went, with accusations of other men, suspicious messages, and unanswered chew.